Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remus.
Hey, what's going on, everyone? Happy Tuesday to you all, and welcome to another edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Andrew Paterson with you. Alex Allard holding it down while Remo enjoys a couple more days off. He will be back on Friday for Friday's show and another marble race. Although, shout out to Alex. We didn't miss a marble race last Friday. What a great way to finish that week was. All right, packed show today. I'm looking forward to talking football. Of course, it's Labor Day Classic week. The countdown to Sunday is on, and Darrin Bauming of Bonfire Sports is going to jump on. We'll talk some Bombers, Riders, as well as a huge win for the Winnipeg Rifles on the weekend, and DB, of course, calling the play-by-play for Rifles game. So we'll get to all of that. Some great football talk to start it off. Ken Wiebe, a little later on. We'll hit the Jets off season, look ahead to training camp a little bit, but I do have a feeling we're going to be getting into some golf talk. Of course, Ken with his great run at the Tamarack, but you'll also recall that Ken had the most incredible round ever, as far as I'm concerned, with the 2 holes in 1 a few years back at Glendale. Well, his crown is being challenged right now by Karlos Jeong, who we talked about yesterday, who had the eagle, the hole in 1, and the albatross in the same round. Well, Karlos Jeong is going to join us from Southwood on the golf course coming up a little later on. And then, of course, it's also the Canadian National Women's Mid-Am and Senior Championships underway right now at Breezy Bend. And the tournament director of the event, Danial Suppa from Golf Canada, is going to jump on the program a little later on and fill us in on what's going on at Breezy over the course of the next 3 days. Before we get going, a big thanks to all the sponsors that make this show happen, including Coolbet. By the way, Dustin Nielsen and I just finished the Lock Shop with the CFL picks for this week. Wherever you get your podcast, search Lock Shop, give us a sub. And listen, I don't want to jinx myself here, but I was 4-0 last week, 3-1 the week before against the spread, seeing the board very well going into the most important regular season week of the year in the Canadian Football League. So timing is everything. Check that out. And by the way, for you fantasy football guys and girls out there getting ready for your draft tonight, 6 p.m. Winnipeg time, we'll stream it on Dustin's Twitter feed as well as mine. Another edition of the Lock Shop Fantasy Football Extravaganza. We'll dive into wide receivers. And I got a draft tonight, so it'll be a nice little bit of extra prep. So make sure that you're subscribing and checking out what we're doing on the Lock Shop. Big expansion of the Lock Shop starting next week, coming out of the long weekend. I'll let you know about that a little bit more over the next few days. All right, a couple things to get to right now. If you're watching with us live on YouTube, we're going to be paying close attention to Canada, USA going at it. Both teams undefeated. Final game of the round robin at the World Women's Hockey Championship. So we'll be all over that and keep you updates throughout. And we will also be, as I said, I'll get into maybe a little bit more of the golf talk with Ken as well, in addition to hockey's big news today. We knew that Live Tour was going to get some more top PGA Tour players once the Tour Championship is over. The worst kept secret in golf, Cam Smith, Open champion, going to Live. That did happen, along with Joakim Niemann. A pretty significant loss, I'd say, for the Tour, an exciting young player. And then Mark Leishman, Harold Varner III, Cameron Tringali, and Anrabam Lahiri. The one guy, or there's 2 guys that were long rumored to be in that mix, Adam Scott and Hideki Matsuyama. Neither of them there. Hideki reportedly turning down between $300 and $400 million. I guess there's still a chance he could go there potentially after the President's Cup. But right now, no Hideki, no Adam Scott. Overall, probably relatively good considering what the fears were for the PGA Tour, and obviously everything that happened last week with Tiger and Rory and the players meeting. Seems like the PGA has done their best to fend off Live right now, and going to be for a very, very interesting few days. The other big news that we will certainly get to with Darrin Bauming, sad news for Chris Streveler. We all knew that the guy could not have done anything more to earn a spot with the New York Jets. But considering he had to beat out Mike White, who played in regular season action last year, threw over 400 yards in his first start, and actually played very well in the first half of the last game, just not enough spots for a talented quarter like Streveler. And it'll be very interesting to see what happens with Strev whether he does get another opportunity in the National Football League. He's 3 games away, I believe, from getting his NFL pension, which would be massive for him long term. So I have a feeling that he'll search out those opportunities. But tell you what, with what he's already done in the Canadian Football League and the way he looked in NFL preseason, if there's no NFL job for him, there'll be plenty of CFL teams that'll be more than happy to get Chris Streveler into the mix. So Ken Wiebe coming up later on. Canadian Women's Am will get out to Breezy Bend. The master of the ace and albatross, Karlos Jeong, coming up. But let's start it off with our good friend Darrin Bauming on the program. Lots of football to talk about heading into the long weekend. DB, what's going on, my friend? Great to have you on the show.
Yeah, Huss, good to be with you, man. Hope you had a good weekend. This week, it's a special week, isn't it? We've got the Labor Day Classic on tap.
Oh, man, it's, the whole season's been amazing. And I have to admit, being at these last few games at IG Field for the Bombers, it's sort of had Banjo Bowl, Labor Day Classic type environment. That being said, it's going to be cranked up another couple notches come Sunday afternoon. The Riders have already sold out this game. I believe it's their first sellout of the season. I know many of you will be throwing the blue and gold on and making the trip out to Regina. And I know you're going to be out there in Regina as well, DB. Just quickly fill us in on what you and the Bonfire boys have kicking up heading into the big weekend and the big game on Sunday.
Yeah, it's a special weekend, a special game. So we've got some special things planned on Bonfire Sports. Walby, of course, as he should, going to the lake on the weekend. So working with some technology to get him good to go. He might even do the broadcast from his boat. So stay tuned for that the day before the game, as we always do our pregame show. But for those that follow Jeff Hamilton and Ted Wyman on social media, Twitter, but in particular Instagram, they kind of had Jeff and Ted's excellent adventure last year going to the Labor Day Classic, right? So I'm going to be a third wheel on this. I'm hopping in the car with them, headed out to Regina. So we're going to have tons of fun Friday, heading out there Saturday and Sunday for the game, obviously, and then coming back on Monday. I'm sure we'll be tired by then, but half as tired as the Blue Bombers and the Riders are expected to be. Doesn't matter what the standings are going into these back-to-backs. Hustler on Labor Day and the Banjo Bowl, the green and white and the blue and gold always go like gangbusters against each other, and you never, ever know what's going to happen. So for the Bombers, an opportunity to lock down a playoff spot. Can you believe it? It's week 13 in the CFL out of a 21-week season.
I read that today.
That's crazy.
It
leaves all these Eastern... Yeah, it leaves all those Eastern teams, obviously, in that struggling division, that if they all lose or Winnipeg wins, none of those teams are going to be crossing over to the West to potentially grab a playoff spot. Like as if the Bombers are going to lose out, their final stretch of the season here. That's not going to happen. So either way, another thing that is great too is that we get the Labor Day Classic and the Banjo Bowl, but then we also get a third meeting between the Bombers and Riders a little bit later this season. So that's going to be a great thing. And obviously, I'm sure Wade Miller and the Winnipeg Blue Bombers Football Club are excited because that could potentially be a sellout as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, we've had 30K the last 2 games. Banjo Bowl's already sold out. I mean,
Awesome.
This is, I believe, going to be, and this is just off the top of my head, but I think it has to be the most successful year in the history of the Bombers since moving to IG Field attendance-wise. And listen, if you haven't been out at the games, make a point of seeing if you can grab a ticket somehow to the Banjo Bowl or that other game against the Riders, because it really has been the place to be, and the games have been so much fun. And obviously the team and their record and what they're doing on the football field speaks for itself. Listen, before we start diving in...
I'll interrupt you if I can. It's important right now. This is literally the hottest ticket in town. Objectively speaking, if you want to go to a Bombers game this year and see this team try to make it 3 straight Grey Cup championships, buy your ticket now. I've referred to IG Field this season as the Madhouse on Matheson. It is a scene there every single home game. As you mentioned, the 30,000, but I'm walking the concourse in the fourth quarter. The place is littered with every type of person you can imagine. There's 20 somethings, 30 somethings, 40, 50 people with their families, like you name it. Real energy and a unique one as well at the Madhouse on Matheson. So don't wait. If you're looking at going to a game in late September or October, I would get your ticket now.
Yeah, the sooner the better, because as many of you that maybe said, oh, I'm going to go to the Banjo Bowl, and then a month before the game saw the tweet going, what? It's already sold out? You got to be kidding me. Now, but just before we get to the matchup, and I do want to talk about that big win for the Rifles that you called on the weekend, sort of the big news coming out of yesterday's show was Chris Streveler. And you know what? He was released by the New York Jets yesterday, and in some ways, we shouldn't be surprised. I mean, listen, that depth chart was pretty much set in stone beforehand. You got a number two overall pick in Zach Wilson, who is the future and will be the starter as soon as he's healthy again. He got injured in the first preseason game. You've got a veteran quarterback there for a reason that's won a Super Bowl in Joe Flacco. And the third quarterback position was a guy in Mike White. And Mike White, if you remember last year, started a game, threw for over 400 yards, had some big plays when he got in. And, that was just too hard of a hill to climb. But I want to ask you about what you think Chris Streveler's situation is going forward. I mean, you'd have to think that what he did and the attention that he got and the way that he won all those 3 games might get him another opportunity in the NFL. And I think needing 3 games to qualify for his NFL pension, that certainly would be the best case scenario for Streveler. But obviously, I think it's safe to say that there are plenty of teams, not just the Winnipeg Blue Bombers, that would kill to get Streveler into the organization if he did decide to come back north of the border to the 3-down game.
No question, right? We here in Winnipeg especially, but across the country, know what Chris Streveler can do. And yeah, you mentioned the pension. Like, for those that don't know, that entry-level pension, as an NFL veteran, like, he's going to get $20,000 annually for the rest of his life. So this isn't just, it'll be a nice bonus or whatever. That's essentially locking down serious security for your family and for frankly generations to come. So no doubt Chris Streveler wants to get on an active roster, dress for some games, and hit that threshold. But we know what Chris Streveler can do. He is hard-nosed. He is a leader. He's pure fire on the field as far as getting his team motivated around him. We know he can run the ball like a fullback with speed. But what really impressed me in his 3 preseason appearances for the New York Jets was how accurate he was throwing the football. One of his interceptions was just a ridiculous play by the safety that was playing against DeAndre Alford, another former Bomber and Grey Cup champ, and the Atlanta Falcons, where Alford was in coverage. The receiver beat him, and the safety just came over and ripped the ball out of the receiver's hands. So you look at Chris Streveler's numbers, touchdowns versus interceptions, completion percentage, and QB rating. It's even better than the numbers show. What blew my mind, Hustler, was like, I was really confident yesterday. It's like, okay, their head coach is mentioning him by name in the locker room after a game with all the cameras on him, not a media scrum, but his conversation, his speech to the players after the game saying, how about Streveler, man? They're all, screaming. And I can't imagine cutting a guy like that and not expecting your team to be like, WTF, like, what's going on? Why would you do that to a guy like this? It's going to be up to Chris Streveler now to either sign with another team, or I'm sure the New York Jets would be comfortable offering him a spot on their practice roster. But that pension, the opportunities, that sort of thing, no doubt 31 other teams were aware and are aware now of Chris Streveler. They saw what he is capable of doing in a game. The New York Jets have built their quarterback stable for a reason, and that is to give veteran reinforcement behind their number 2 overall pick. So for Wilson and Joe Flacco and Mike White, that's going to be the way they're going to go. The Jets are not exactly a team that's blowing the socks off anybody yet, but you have to think a guy like Chris Streveler would help a football team south of the border in one way or another.
Well, here's the thing. And listen, Mike White, I think they really think of him. I mean, Flacco's not there for long. And I kind of do believe
15 years.
Yeah, they envision that Mike White next year, the year afterwards will be the complement to Zach Wilson. And that's why they're doing this. But when you look at other QB rooms around the league, a guy like Streveler, if he's your third quarterback and on the roster and able to play, or even in a backup role, like we've saw in Arizona before, I mean, he has such a unique skill set. I mean, if I'm a head coach, I'd love to have that talent on the bench, whether it be short yardage, whether it be some creative trick plays from a talented offensive mind, that he could go in and be much more than a guy just holding the clipboard. And, that's why I think that there was some real hope that, he might get the opportunity to stick on the active roster with the Jets. But I do understand it's a numbers game, and obviously teams have invested in particular players, and Streveler was just an unsigned free agent that got a chance to come in. But man, did he acquit himself well. And I don't believe we've heard the last of Streveler in the National Football League, considering what he's done this year. But what we're most focused in on is the Canadian three-down game. But again, we'll get to Bombers Riders, and we'll be talking about this all week long. Quickly, how about a little love for the Winnipeg Rifles? A huge win. Jordy Wilson's been with this program for a long time. They've been getting it handed to them by that Hilltops team. And a pretty historic win for the Rifles program on the weekend, wasn't it?
It was week 3 of their regular season and their home opener. I have the pleasure of doing their play-by-play on their broadcasts on cjfltv.com. And they're playing at Eastside Eagles Field right now. They're putting in a brand new turf field at the St. Vital Mustangs facility at Maple Grove Park. It's going to be gorgeous, and they're ensuring that they get it how it needs to be for potentially the final game of the regular season or the playoffs. But a huge step up for this junior football program here in the Manitoba capital. But Winnipeg had a couple tough losses on the road. They went into Saskatoon, lost by a score. They go into Regina against the defending Canada Bowl champion, national champion Regina Thunder, lose by 2, leading going into the fourth quarter. So they came into Winnipeg with the Hilltops in town, and people are like, oh yeah, okay, the Rifles are 0-2, not able to beat those tough teams from Saskatchewan. They have been in every game they've played this year. And then on Sunday here in Winnipeg, they led pretty much the entire game. Bryson McNeil, their quarterback, is number 2 in the country in passing. He is lights out. He threw for 187 yards in the first half this week, has thrown for 300 or just short of 300 in each of his first 3 games this season. The defense, led by Brandon Kamens, their dime backer, they got a great kicker. In Donovan Downing, he went 4 for 4 this week, punted exceptionally. The special teams, the cover teams, they were great. This Rifles team is not just on the up and up. People are expecting them to be a team making noise in the postseason. The Canada Bowl, the Canadian Junior Football League National Championship, will be hosted in the Prairie Football Conference. So if the Rifles are able to win their conference this year, the Canada Bowl will be in Winnipeg on that beautiful new turf field in South Winnipeg at Maple Grove Park. So for people out there that want to catch some of this great football action, like super entertaining football, believe me, I'm not just saying that. Go to riflesfootball.com. You can find them on the social medias, all of the channels at Rifles Football, and you want to get in on this early. It's a great product to watch. And well, players from, frankly, across Northwestern Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, guys from the Winnipeg High School Football League. It is really, really entertaining to see. And this team's starting to really flex their muscle, and people across the country are catching notice of this Rifles club.
Yeah, and we're spoiled here right now. I mean, obviously what the Bombers have done over the last few years, longtime fans know how lucky we are right now, but it's just awesome to see a great junior program get some results after so much hard work. And of course, we've got the Bisons starting their season after a great year last year under Brian Dobie, beginning it on Friday, I believe, for their first game of the season after playing some preseason action next year. But we all know what the main event is. That is the Labor Day Classic. And DP, we'll focus on the Bombers. We always do, but I'm interested in your thoughts on where the Riders are heading into this game after getting that big win in BC, albeit without Nathan Rourke. How dangerous is this Rider team at home in a sold-out building in a game that, as you correctly stated, you can pretty much throw out the records most years when these teams go at it?
No question. The Saskatchewan Roughriders, in my opinion, have the potential to be a lot better than their record shows. They've lost some games this season by narrow margins. Cody Fajardo has battled through a lot of injury. He's mentioned that his knee has been bugging him quite a bit, has not got a lot of help on offense. Their offensive line is quite Swiss cheese at the moment. Just not a lot of talent there, and they're just not getting the job done. Now they're without their starting running back, I would say top 3 tailback in the league in Jamal Morrow. But Saskatchewan is built around their defense. Jason Shivers was a disciple of Chris Jones when he was head coach and general manager in Saskatchewan a handful of years ago. Shivers is now the DC and has been since that time. And every year that defense has gotten better, from a scheming perspective and a coaching perspective. They have lots of talent there. Derek Moncrief, for my dollar, maybe the best defensive player in the CFL today. Had a lot of time in the NFL. He plays the dime. He'll play safety. They can put him at corner or halfback. They really move him around everywhere. He'll even play weak side linebacker right in the box at the line of scrimmage. So, the talent is there, and the defensive line, I know everybody's been talking about Garrett Marino. Well, he's not even listed as a starter right now, and I don't know if you saw that news bit, Hustler.
Apparently he's pissed off about it.
Stink. Yeah, he put up look, what kind of guy says, well, I'm not a starter, I'm not listed as a starter? How about worry about going out there and playing clean football? Garrett Marino has been a maligned character for good reason all season long, even going into last season. I do know this, Huss. Fans in Winnipeg are worried. You listen to the coaches show, you listen to the call-ins, my live chat on Game Day Winnipeg and our post-game show on After Dark on Bonfire. Everybody's worried that Garrett Marino is going to try to hurt somebody as he did against, a bunch of teams in his career, but most notably Jeremiah Mazzoli, knocking him out for the season for the Ottawa Red Blacks. So it's going to be important for Winnipeg to protect and play sharp football on offense. Having Brady Oliveira part of a rejuvenated run game that looks a lot more solid than it did earlier in the season. To see Nick Dembski have his, you could call it a breakout game, but really it was just a I told y'all so game last week against Calgary, but I'm sure he'll be motivated going up against a team that drafted him out of the University of Manitoba several years ago. And for Zach Collaros, I always expect him, as we've seen him do over and over again, if he kind of has a mediocre or bad game, maybe not a bad game against Calgary last week, but 2 interceptions, both in the end zone. Those are killers. Winnipeg's still able to come away with the victory, but I expect Zach Collaros to be really on his game and spreading the ball around against a talented defense in Saskatchewan. Buck Pierce versus Jason Shivers, maybe 2 of the top coordinators in the CFL right now, league-wide. So really looking forward to that on Sunday afternoon.
Well, you know what? It's funny. And Dusty and I were just chopping it up and making our picks for the game. And I'm going to lay the points with the Bombers. I mean, I think they've proven they're in another class than the Riders so far. But, it is a nervous pick because these games, not to mention every game Nielsen calls seems to be a 1-point thriller right down to the end. But that's something that's happened around the Canadian Football League this year. But you brought up Buck Pierce. And we were talking about Buck earlier on the Lock Shop, and I'm not sure that Buck Pierce is getting the credit that he deserves right now. There has been, some significant changes from the offseason, first of all, to this year. And Greg Ellingson, who is clearly the number 1 target on the team, has missed some significant time. And game after game, the Bomber game plan, especially last game against Calgary, has taken advantage of some holes on the defense, but also found ways to get the ball into the hands of playmakers. Earlier in the season, it was Greg McCrae. He was a star with that big first touchdown last week. And Nick Dembski, maybe the most versatile player when it comes to the Bomber receiving core, having that game with 153 combined yards. But I've just been so impressed with what Buck has done. And you add in the bounce back game for the offensive line, setting up Brady Oliveira, who, of course, didn't play in the second half. Johnny Augustine, I think Brady was at 7.5 yards a carry. Johnny was over 5. That's exactly what they wanted to do. But I wouldn't be surprised if we saw some new wrinkles when you consider how much these teams are going to be playing against each other in the next month with 3 matchups. You know that Buck has been spending some late nights watching that Rider game tape. And I think the Bombers will have a few interesting wrinkles for the big game on Sunday afternoon.
So Zach Schnitzer, my co-host on Bonfire Sports, him and I have been talking about this a lot early in the season. There was obviously those well-publicized comments from former Bomber defensive back, now with BC, Marcus Sayles, calling Winnipeg's offense vanilla. And, you know, a reality in pro football is you don't put all your cards on the table right away. Winnipeg's offense, especially the run game, did look a little bit flat to start the season, but it's important to know that you don't show everything right away. I think we're starting to see now that we're into the second half of the season, Buck Pierce going into the little bit of the deeper chapters of his playbook, bringing in things we haven't seen yet before. And if you look back at the Bombers' schedule, that game in Edmonton where Karlos threw for 43% and Winnipeg was able to squeak by with a win, that was the week before the second game against Calgary. And in that game, you could see the Stampeders' defense not really understanding or knowing how to defend the Blue Bombers. It's almost like they played possum against Edmonton and then brought in some very new concepts and looks against Calgary to ensure that they had a little bit of a, an ace in their sleeve to win the season series against the team everybody expects them to be right there with them at the end of the season in the West. So this is the game of 3D chess pro football teams play against one another. We're going to see things in week 1 against Saskatchewan, and then, or I should say, the Labor Day Classic this week, and then the second meeting in the Banjo Bowl. They might look completely different. And then a third meeting a little bit later in the season, as I mentioned, back here at IG Field. They're always trying to catch the opponent off guard, implementing things they're not expecting, and then trying to find an advantage in the game. It's not always halftime adjustments in football. It's pregame adjustments. It's looking down the road at, okay, we got to play these guys again. Maybe let's keep a couple concepts, in our back pocket when we need them. Winnipeg has done a phenomenal job of that. It shows by their record. But yeah, like you said, these games between Winnipeg and Saskatchewan, you never know what's going to happen. So often, in really all of Winnipeg's games this year, it's come down to one play, maybe two, that's been the difference. And with the raucous crowd at Mosaic on Sunday, I expect it to be a very close game in a similar situation.
DB, I know we'll get some updates this week as the team gets through practice, but what do we know about Brady Oliveira and some of the bumps and bruises coming out of the win against Calgary on Thursday?
So the Blue Bombers have taken this opportunity, obviously they were coming out of their bye playing against Calgary last week. They've kind of taken a little mini bye again now. So taken a few days after breaking down the film following that game against the Stamps to just relax, kick back. A lot of guys like to go fishing here in Southern Manitoba and that sort of thing. So they've really given them chance to continue to ensure their bodies are where they need to be. Michael Shea mentioned on his coach's show on Monday, Hustler, that he expects Brady Oliveira to be okay. Of course, you always take those comments about injury status from the head coach, Mike O'Shea, with a little bit of grain of salt. But the fact that Oliveira was on the sidelines, I know he didn't have his helmet with him and he didn't get a touch in the second half. I think that he's okay, more precautionary than anything, similar to Lucky Whitehead. BC much more open with the information they release on their injured players. They said Lucky Whitehead didn't go back into the game this past weekend against Saskatchewan, just as more of a precaution than anything. I'm kind of tend to feel that's the case with Brady Oliveira. But for Brandon Alexander and Kyrie Wilson and a lot of these guys that are a little bit longer term, I don't know if Winnipeg is going to work to, rush them back into the lineup. They're sitting quite comfortably in the standings right now. They don't have to do anything hasty that might jeopardize, full advantages that they would have with their roster come November.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I mean, I think we can't ignore the injury in BC with Nathan Rourke. I mean, if he's still there right now and, the Bombers have the one loss and the BC Lions have one loss, albeit they played less games. I mean, you're really putting the pedal on the metal. I mean, I think right now the big question is, what happens to BC over the course of this next 4 to 6 weeks? Do they take a big step back, or was that just a blip with the home loss to Saskatchewan? but it's quite clear, especially after sweeping the season series against Calgary, that the West is Winnipeg's to lose. And it's hard to believe this, DB, but I mean, I remember we were joking last year, about how nuts it was that, you're at a 14-game season and the Bombers had basically clinched the West through 10 or 11 games. Bombers can clinch a playoff spot this week and could very well be in a similar situation. I think that would be just fine with Mike O'Shea, because you mentioned players like BA, Kyrie Wilson. I mean, if they can spend as much time as they need to get these guys back into the fold, get them healthy, get them to 100%, not to mention with 2 additional buys, the Bombers will put themselves in the best possible position to just wait it out, be healthy and ready to go for a West final here in Winnipeg, win that game, and head on and trying to make it 3 in a row in Regina in November.
Absolutely. I shouldn't fail to mention Greg Ellingson, right? Placed on the 6-game injury list for a second time this season. We've seen how good he has been and how much chemistry and gel there is between him and former Ticats teammate of his in Zach Collaros. So, I think you have to be very strategic in how you handle things right now. Would Winnipeg like to have better play, from some of the players deeper on their receiving core? Well, Greg McRae sure stepped up against the Stampeders. I think that's been pretty good. Carlton Agadosi, another one. Mike O'Shea kind of alluding to maybe being a stretch of time yet. If you can get Ellingson and Agadosi back, we saw the type of game and production he's capable of with that 2-touchdown game against the Stamps in the first game here in Winnipeg. And then those players on defense, it's not just Brandon Alexander, but Malcolm Thompson, the Canadian who started at safety, started the season there, also on the 6-game injured list. I think they would probably like better play in some situations from Canadian safety Nick Hallett. But hey, overall, this Bombers defense is playing pretty good football. They lost Demario Houston. That's the guy I'm going to be looking for tomorrow morning, Hustler, at Blue Bombers practice. If he misses some time, Jamal Parker did a pretty good job in his first CFL, real CFL action, but Demario Houston is Winnipeg's best defensive back, and that's saying something. Maybe Dietrich Nichols probably right there as well, but with Winston Rose and Nick Taylor, very talented group. Houston amongst the best of that bunch. That's going to be important going up against a Roughriders team that can really beat you both ways. Fajardo's legs, well, it might be a lot more of Fajardo's arm if he's still nagging that knee injury.
Hey, just quickly before we go, Big Guy is saying, I thought Kyrie Wilson was out for the season. Is there a potential that he comes back at some point later on this year?
Well, there's the Mike O'Shea effect even on me. They're never going to rule anybody out. I do know Mercy Maston had surgery. It's very likely season ending. I presume Kyrie Wilson will not play again this season, but as is the Blue Bombers mantra, they'll never say never, and it's 1 week at a time. But I think Malik Clements has not been a fall off at talent at weak side linebacker. If Adam Bighill and something happens to him, I would be much, much more concerned. Willie Jefferson, Jackson Jeffcoat, Collaros, that sort of bunch, I think would be much more concerning. So Winnipeg has not had a lot of fortune with health this season, but it's all about getting healthy in October and into November, and that's what they're really focused on.
Good stuff, DB. So just quick schedule alert for Bomber fans that want more content. When are you doing midweek, and when can we expect the pregame show, if you will, with Wallaby from wherever the hell he's going to connect with you from?
Yeah, exactly. Well, special guest tonight, somebody who's very popular on this channel, Winnipeg Sports Talk. Jeff Hamilton is going to join me on Bonfire midweek tonight. We go live at 7:30, youtube.com/Bonfire Sports. You can find all the links and channels on bonfiresports.ca. Walby will join me at some point on Saturday. We'll try to get, the wobbly pop schedule where it needs to be on the weekend for Chris. And then, of course, we're going to do post game as we always do as soon as we can after the game on Sunday. But keep it locked to the channels. Stay on my Twitter, stay on the Instagram of Jeff Hamilton and the rest. We're going to have a lot of adventures and fun and impromptu content in Regina all weekend long. So, hit subscribe, ring that bell, and then you'll know when we're live.
Listen, adding you to the mix with those two bozos on the road, considering how hilarious the IG stories were last year, it'll be, this might be a good reason just to get Instagram if you don't have it, Bomber fans. Bombing, thanks for doing this. Looking forward to all the content this week. And of course, your reports from Regina. And then we'll do it all again the following week right here in the Peg for the annual Banjo Bowl. Thanks for doing this, and we'll talk to you soon.
Go Rifles, rifle up.
There is Darrin Bauming. And of course, once again, congratulations to the Rifles for that big win last weekend. All right. Big thanks to our friends at Vita Health Fresh Market, great sponsors of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And, at Vita Health Fresh Market, they have so much going on. We talk about being barbecue season, still a little bit longer. Amazing options like lean bison steaks, chicken, hot dogs, burgers, non-alcoholic beverages for entertaining. But the bottom line is Vita Health is stocked with Winnipeg's best selection of local, organic, and natural groceries, not to mention supplements and beauty products. They've been the experts in this field for 85 years, empowering people to lead healthy lives. Pop down and see them at one of 7 Winnipeg locations. Check out that great grab-and-go deli with Vita Market salads and sandwiches. And make sure, including their newest store in Linden Ridge. I had a great time out at their community barbecue a few weeks back. You can also shop online, fully shoppable website, myvita.ca. Schedule a delivery or in-store pickup. Wallace & Wallace has been so busy all week, all summer long, and you probably know them first and foremost by the fence side of the business, as they've been the fencing experts. Chances are, if there's a fence there, it's a Wallace & Wallace. But they're also a leader in garage doors, working with Clopay, the largest garage door manufacturer in the world. And despite supply chain challenges, you can still get a brand new, beautiful garage door delivered and installed within 4 weeks, just in time for the chaos and the heavy work on that garage door when school's back in, hockey and whatnot begins after the Labor Day weekend. And by the way, new garage door can add up to 4% on the value of your home. With 161 styles of garage doors to choose from, there's a style that's right for your home. Visit them at wallacedoors.com. Give them a call or visit their showroom over on Lawson Road. After the show, in between another Lock Shop edition and a fantasy draft tonight, I'll be popping over to F Apparel to pick up my suit and some new shirts I picked up. Great shirt offer right now in the summer. 3 for $210, fitted just the way you like, in whatever color and pattern that you want. And I got to tell you, the process for getting a custom suit from F Apparel was really, really easy, with a great staff down at 190 Smith Street. Bottom line is, guys, everyone needs at least one suit that fits and looks great. Chances are you haven't worn yours very much in the last couple years. Might be a great time to step up the wardrobe and start it all down with the experts at F Apparel. 190 Smith Street. Find out more online at EPHapparel.com. And again, a big thanks to our friends at Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge. My God, we had just an amazing weekend a few weeks back out at Aikens, and they're already planning for an incredibly busy 2023. If you're thinking about an amazing trip for friends and family, or maybe a long overdue corporate retreat after a couple years of Zoom calls, Aikens Lake, with both the fishing and the incredible world-class hospitality of the Terren family, is the place to do it. Find out more online at aikenslake.com, or hit our pal Pitt up on Twitter or Instagram at Aikens Lake and find out more on making plans for 2023 to get out to Aikens Lake. Well, there's been a lot of golf talk on this program lately. You all know I'm a big golf nut. We just had the PGA Tour Championship finishing up this weekend. Rory with the incredible six-shot comeback. But that wasn't the biggest golf story of the week. And it was, with all due respect to Ken Wiebe, who's going to join us a little later on, even his run at the Tamarack was not. No, the story in golf, not just here, but everywhere, became a real viral story, was Southwood member Karlos Jeong carding an eagle, a hole-in-one, and an albatross in the same round. I didn't think we'd ever have a conversation on this program with anything locally to even touch the insanity of Kenny Wiebe getting 2 holes in one in the same round. But here we are. Karlos Jeong joined us a little earlier today from Southwood to talk about his incredible round, how it went down, and what it was like at the golf course after the ace and the albatross went in and he finished his round. Here it is. All right, we talked about this yesterday. Maybe the most awesome story coming out of the weekend was a miracle round in the Southwood Club Championship by Karlos Jeong, who had an eagle, a hole-in-one, and an albatross, all-timer if there ever was one. And Karlos actually joins us now from Southwood at the place where it all happened. Karlos, what's going on? How are you? And thanks for joining me here on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks for having me. Definitely. Yeah. Thank you. It's an honor. Yeah.
What a
I mean, yeah, that's the green, the hole I hold in one. And usually this is hole number 18th, but we start off the back nine, like same as the Manitoba Open they did. So like we play as a ninth hole, and this is the hole I eagled.
This, I mean, just listen, you've played a lot of golf before. Did you feel extra good heading to the course on Saturday? I mean, fill us in on what happened before. Was it just a normal round? I mean, I guess you could have never imagined what was to come.
I was really rushed. Like I got course like I couldn't even make it to the practice putting ring. I just hit like 6 balls and went to the outside. I start off 3-putt bogey, so like my shot wasn't good, but then my putt wasn't working really. So I was 2 over through 7th hole, and then I like 8th hole. I told myself hey, like I gotta drop some birdie putts, like Then 8th hole, like my shot went in, so he put me through even par. Yeah, so I'm like, oh. Like I was very excited, obviously, right? But like, I play junior golf, so like I can't get into a little serious mode as well. And then I told myself, I'm like, hey, like a lot of people screw up because they're too excited. I gotta calm myself down. Like this is just a new game because now just even now, right? Because I was 2 over, and I was able to calm myself down, hit a beautiful drive down the fairway on a like on a ninth par 5, and finished with the eagle. I put I was like hundreds. Yeah, I hit my 8 areas, take it to like 6 feet. Then and then I put that in. My eagle, I finished front nine with 2 under, feeling really good. Instead of
No
2
doubt
over,
about it.
like in 2 holes. Yeah.
It turns out. Had you ever had a hole-in-one before?
I had two hole in ones, but in South Korea, because I was in South Korea till like I came here when I was 15 years old. I was playing golf, like competitive golf in South Korea as a junior.
So you had a couple, but this was the first one at beautiful Southwood. So you got some good momentum. You got some good momentum going into the back. Fill us in on the holes, and then you get up to the par 5. I mean, everybody wants to know about the albatross. What happened? What did you use?
Yeah. So it was originally 7th hole. Originally 7th hole, but we played as obviously 16th, right? Because we played start from the back nine. I hit my driver. I usually hit a like baby draw, but it was kind of a little bit more than I thought, and it landed like it wasn't fairway, but it was a first cut grass and rough, and it hit a 203-yard left to the pin, and like I usually hit a draw, and then 7th hole Southwood left side is like all water. It's pretty tight on the left side. So I aim at the right side of the bunker. I hit my nice draw. When it was going, I hit my 6-iron, 202-yard left. I hit my 6-iron. It hit the front of the green on the right side green. Start rolling. I was looking at it. I'm like, yeah, because draw has a little more rolls, right? So I'm like, oh, it's gonna be really good. It's gonna be tight. And all of a sudden, boom, went in. I was like, did it just happen? It was crazy. Like I'm like, I gotta make this eagle, like, And then he just, yeah, it was like a dream. I was like, I couldn't believe it. I told my partners, I'm like, did it just went in? They're like, yeah, you know what I mean? Albatross. And I started like dancing. Yeah,
It's just
it
the
was
most
very, yeah,
that's the
no,
most
like I
bananas
dreamed
thing I've
about it.
ever heard. What was that? So I mean, you finished. How hard was it to play the next two holes? Be honest. I mean, you've got a hole in one. Now you've just hit the albatross. You realize that this is like
Yeah,
legitimately a historic round. What were you like? What were you like on the eighth tee?
like so the 17th hole, like 17th hole was like a 135-yard par three. So it wasn't like really inside the pitching range. I'm pretty confident. So it wasn't like I just made a par, you know. But got to the 18th. The 18th tee shot can be tricky because like I mean, this year like rained so much. Our fescues are like you can't even find it if it goes in the fescue. I hit a driver, obviously pressure. I hit into the fescue, the left side. I kind of hooked it, and then I had 145-yard left, and there's a tree on the left side. I had to go over the tree, but the fescues are pretty thick, so I I hit it, and then you know, like when you hit it out of the fescue, like it only goes like full swing, only goes like 30 yards, like
Yeah.
you know, and it hit the tree and then landed under the tree, and then there's a baby tree in front of me, and I had a 82-yard left on my third shot, and then like if I make a bogey, I'm 4 under, but I shot 4 under before, but I never shot 5 under at Southwood, so it's my new like score like record. So I'm like I really wanted to make a par. I was like, calm, like I keep telling myself, calm down, I can make this. And I hit it. I stick it to 1 feet. It landed like I hit my 58, boom, and then I guess they Southwest still has those platforms for the Manitoba Open, so all the tournament people are hanging out there drinking, like you know, and then they saw that just boom up. They're like, whoa! And I was able to make the par save and then finish with the 5 under round. But I was so
Well,
nervous.
I mean, you know, listen, it's just, I mean, that's fantastic. You got your curve, you know, the course record, your personal record there at Southwood. But I have to ask
Yeah,
you,
my
like,
personal.
what was it like after the round? I mean, it's the club championship. There's so many people there, everyone for the club. And I'm sure word travels that not only did you bang a hole in one, but an albatross in the same round. I mean, what was your reaction afterwards when you got to the clubhouse and around the area?
I felt like it's just like I couldn't believe it still, right? Like I felt like I didn't know like when I was playing, I didn't thought that it was such a big deal. You know, like when I was playing, because I guess I was like kind of like focusing for tournaments and stuff, like scores. But after like it hit me, I was like, wow, like it was a very wild day. Like everybody congratulated me. Like it kind of went viral. Like
No
yeah,
kidding.
yeah, like yeah, and then yeah, yeah,
Well,
a lot of drinking
we've
after.
been talking. We, I'll tell you what. If there was ever you deserved it, we were joking yesterday. When you get a hole in one, you got to buy everyone a drink. When you do a hole in one in an albatross, you got to buy everybody a full 5-course dinner or something like that. It's the next
Yeah,
level.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, I bought drink for everybody, and yeah, it was it was a very expensive round, but it was a good round.
I got to tell you, Carlos, this has been so much fun having you on the program. As I said, we're talking to Ken Wiebe with his tool holes in one and around. I didn't think that would ever be touched by anyone that we talked to or had in Manitoba. You, my friend, I think did it. Eagle, hole in one,
Yeah,
and albatross in the
and
same round.
albatross.
That is historic. And I know everyone at Southwood's incredibly fired up about it. And I think just people having a fun time talking about this historic round at Southwood by a
Yeah,
Winnipegger in Manitoba. Congratulations. What the guy's still
thank you so
this
much.
is never gonna get old, is it?
No, no, I. This is some story that I can tell my great grandkid, right? Hey, you know, my like I did this, and you know, running the family.
Oh, well, I got to tell you, this has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the program. And you know what? You'll have a copy of this. You can tell your friends to check it out and save it on a replay. And later on down the way, you check out that episode of Winnipeg Sports Talk. I came on and rolled it, talked all about it. This is amazing. Carlos, thanks so much for taking the time out of your round to jump on with us. And who knows, maybe we'll hear about some more heroics a little later on this afternoon once you finish
Yeah,
and get to
let's
the
do
clubhouse.
it, right? Let's do it. Yeah, thank you, Andrew. It's a pleasure having being your show. It's awesome. Thank you, Andrew.
You know what? The pleasure was all ours. Hit him straight, made the putts drop, and keep it up, Carlos. Great meeting you, and hopefully we'll see you in person sometime soon. Shout out to everyone there at Southwood, and have a great rest of the round. Thanks, Carlos.
Definitely. Thank you, Andrew. You have a great day.
What an absolute beauty. Karlos Jeong, the round of a lifetime for everyone except maybe our next guest. Kenny Weeb's teed up. He's coming on right away. Well, with Ken here, you know what we need to do? A quick hydration break from our friends at Culligan Water. The man, synonymous with being well hydrated, certainly loves his Culligan as well as the rest of us. Hey, you need water products and services for your home, your cottage, or your office. Culligan has you covered. Water softeners, filters, bottled water coolers, whole home systems, drinking water systems, and citywide water delivery services, as well as commercial and industrial water products and solutions. Family owned, they've been the experts in the water game for over 65 years here in southern Manitoba. Pop down and see them, 1200 Sargent Avenue, 694-5180, or check out all their products and services online at drinkculligan.com. Well, NFL season is here, hockey season is here, and things are heating up once again at Royal Sports. We've got great Bomber gear that you might want to pick up before you head to Regina for the game. Certainly thousands of pieces of Winnipeg Jets merchandise with the season just around the corner, and NFL, Jays and MLB, NBA, and more, all there at Royal Sports. And of course, for the hockey player in the family, whatever you need, not only do they have the best selection of equipment in sticks in town, they've also got expert hockey players that'll help you get size to make sure that whatever you're picking up helps take your game to the next level. Royal Sports, 750 Pembina Highway. Follow them on Instagram at Royal Sports Pembina for their latest merchandise drops and sale information. And a big tent sale coming up in early September. We'll tell you about that as well here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Well, with these big games this weekend, if you're not lucky enough to be heading out to Regina, repping the blue and gold there, no better place to get together with the gang to watch it than your local Boston Pizza. Great specials, happy hour 3 to 6 and 9 to 12. Pizza flights are back, great summer drink menus. And hey, if you're not able to get to BP, you can always check out their game day deals and order online at bostonpizza.com. And with NFL season coming up, they've got a couple great trips to go see the Raiders down in Vegas. We'll fill you in on that as well as we get into the season. And of course, a big thanks to our friends at Breezy Bend. A little later on, we'll head to Breezy Bend and welcome in Danial Suppa from Golf Canada for a little bit more on what's going on for the Canadian Mid-Am and Senior Women's Championship. But right now, let's welcome in Ken Wiebe, who I'm sure was watching that last interview quite closely with one Karlos Jeong, is the only man even in the conversation for the greatest round of all time. 2 holes in one round I didn't think could ever be topped, and I'm still not sure it has been, but we do have a challenger to your throne, Ken. How cool was that?
Huss, great to be with you. Great interview with Karlos, and yeah, let me join the chorus of those, applauding his incredible feat, and to do it in a club championship. Huss, I was a member at Southwood a couple years back, and man, oh man, I played the course this year, and he's not kidding about the fescue. It is long and deep and thick, so you better keep it on the fairway if you want to score at that course, man. Just an incredible feat, and I am definitely tipping my cap. And news sort of traveled pretty hard up to Clear Lake area when that happened, and people were very impressed, and I was one of those people. There's no doubt about that.
Yeah, it's wild. By the way, just some quick breaking news for Bomber fans. I'm seeing that former Bomber offensive lineman Drew Desjardins has been waived by the New England Patriots. So depending on how this one shakes out, he could be back here in Winnipeg. And what a big addition to the Bomber offensive line, coming off a great game against Calgary, if that can happen. But yes, Ken, back to the golf for a minute. I mean, there's been a lot of talk about Karlos Jeong, but we also had some fun last week following your 2-week stint out at the Fowler household out in Clear Lake. You had a nice little run there at the Tamarack. I mean, what was this, a 10-day tournament or something? Made it all the way to the finals, finished second, and now the Weave's World Unfinished Business Tour for the 2023 event has already started, I imagine.
Yeah, there's no doubt, Huss. It was the tournament itself is 8 days. I went up 2 days early for a couple of practice rounds for the qualifying round. Loved the Stanley Thompson course up at Clear Lake. Definitely had a great time out at the Fowler residence, and I am missing the fireplace. But Huss, I tried to bring a little bit of the greenery in my own backyard here today. It was an awesome event. Absolutely did not play my best during the qualifying round. Obviously ended up in the 8th flight, but there were some people, I was in good company in the 8th flight as it turned out. I had a great match in the championship, consolation championship with Mark Williams, who is just so happens to be Sean Reynolds' cousin. So we had a blast. Him and I played together the last 4 days, and it was just fantastic. We had a nice little gallery of friends and family members around. And Huss, our good friend Mark Chuby was my caddy on Saturday morning. So
yes,
as you can imagine, we had a great time. I went over to the Chuby residence on Friday night for a quick visit, and I talked him into it. And by the time I talked him into it, he was wishing that he had the white coveralls with the Wiebe on the backdrop, but we couldn't quite make that happen for this year. But it was a fantastic event. I did finish in second place in that matchup. It was a fun match. Match play can change quickly, as you know. I won the 9th hole to pull within 1. Both of us hit out of bounds on 10, and he hit to the back of the green to a front pin. I chipped it to a foot and tapped in for bogey. And in my head, I'm thinking, at best, Mark is going to 2-putt for par. And given the the difficult nature of the downhill putt to the front pin, I thought there was a legit shot for a 3-putt here, and I was not wishing that upon him. But bomb.com, Mark drains the 35-footer, so I don't even have the hole. I lose the hole. I'm down by 2. On 11, I missed a 2-footer to have the hole. And on 12, Huss, you know how much I love the par 3s. I block an 8-iron. I think I'm going to be just beside the green. It hits the cart path and goes out of bounds. And suddenly, not only am I not tied in the match, I'm down by 4 with 5 to play. I did have 13, but lost 5 and 4. But had a fantastic time. Quickly rushed to the championship flight group. As you know, I mentioned last week, I was the Department of Cheerleading, director of cheerleading for Nolan Ritchie in his match. I caught up with them around the 10th hole, or on the 9th green. And Huss, it was an amazing scene. I know this is an amateur event. There were roughly 200 people in the gallery following Jared Crane and Nolan in that match. Mark Odett and Stephen Young were the other match in the first flight. It went right down to the wire in the championship flight with Jared Crane winning on the 18th hole. It was just a fantastic event overall as a spectator, as a player. And you're right. The Ken Wiebe retaliation tour is in full effect. I offered to pay my fee for next season on the spot to guarantee a spot, because as some people know, you have to basically sign up in like March or April if you want to avoid being on the waiting list. But just a fabulous job by the players, sponsors, workers, employees, volunteers, crowd members. Just a dynamite event, and I'm so fortunate to have played in it for the first time, and I'm definitely going to be going back next year for sure.
Well, I had major FOMO on the weekend knowing that you were in the final, but when I heard that Tubes was caddying for you, all I could think of is miking the two of you guys up, because folks, if you've ever golfed with Ken never shuts up. The only person that might talk more than Ken is Mark Chuby. So that would have been something to see. But anyways, congratulations. We had a lot of fun sort of following you guys vicariously, and it was a great run. Listen, we've talked a lot about golf and fun stuff, but guess what? Golf season's coming to a close. Well, not right away, but soon. And of course, that means hockey season is coming. And we joked that Ken could have taken another week at the Tamarack if he needed, because it has been that quiet on the Winnipeg Jets front. But listen, what are you hearing and what do you make of what has been a very quiet summer that is still, well, basically status quo heading into September? I mean, we've spent a lot of time talking about this. I think people thought that this would happen before, but are you getting any indication from your sources that, you know, things might be maybe picking up as we get closer to training camp, or should we expect this is the way things are going to be and we'll see what Rick Bowness can do when the fellas get to the peg?
Yeah, Huss, it's super interesting. The steering contest that we've discussed for the last several weeks seems to still be happening. Whether that means players who are looking for other offers or better offers or longer term, I mean, that remains to be seen. I mean, we still think the Jets are in the market for a middle six forward. I mean, they openly discussed Kevin Cheveldayoff saying that that's a position he wants to improve in the last time that he spoke with members of the media. So I have to imagine that that's still the case. One way to do that is through free agency. Another way is through trade. We know the Jets have a surplus on the back end, and we expect that surplus to be alleviated to some degree, whether that's before training camp, during training camp, after the preseason, or, you know, into the first week of the actual regular season. I mean, I expect it to happen before that time. So right now it's super interesting, Huss. It's pretty quiet around the NHL. I mean, there have been a couple of minor moves made around the league. I mean, obviously Vegas adding some goaltender depth in Aiden Hill, but I mean, that second tier of free agent, they're still sort of in a holding pattern, quite frankly. And, you know, if Evan Rodriguez, you know, he's a guy that we've discussed quite frequently on this show and other places. He'd be a guy that would touch a lot of, you know, check a lot of boxes for a Winnipeg Jets team that's looking to improve. I would think that the Jets would be a good fit for him, but as of right now, there's still not a deal made by him here or with any other team. So either he's looking for more term or more money or a different situation. I mean, one would imagine, but I would think that he's still a possibility for the Jets. And I mean, there's some other guys that would fit the bill as well. And again, Huss, we know that this is the case. I mean, the Jets aren't going to start the season with 10 defensemen on their roster. So, and we both are quite, you know, adamant in what we say. I mean, we expect Dylan Sandberg and Ville Heinola to be on the roster. So, I mean, yes, the easiest move, because of the way waivers work, would be to send those two guys down. But I mean, the Jets want those two guys to be part of the mix. So I can't imagine that that's the scenario we'll be looking at going into training camp. But otherwise, no, I mean, it's still fairly quiet on those fronts. But as you know, Huss, that could change with one phone call. But, you know, right now, we're much like everybody else, we're looking at, you know, standings projections, and, you know, the Coolbet Lines came out on those fronts, I think, this week as well. And, you know, Cole Perfetti finding his way into one of those sleeper lists for the fantasy lovers out there. So I think that Cole is set for an interesting season. I mean, now we know, you know, Paul Stastny has chosen the Carolina Hurricanes, and it looks like a smart place for him. Cole Perfetti is going to have an opportunity to be a top six player. That's what it looks like to me. And one other quick one. I know some people have been wondering about DB, as you just had on, talking mostly Bombers, but I mean, he caught up with Chaz Lucius. I mean, just a quick thing on that front. I mean, because the headline said he may play in the NHL, and I think folks should temper their, you know, expectations for me, Huss. I mean, Chaz Lucius is a guy that I had a chance to watch at UND last year. He played an exceptional game, very smart. I think he had a goal and an assist, very involved. But, I mean, he missed a lot of time due to injury. I mean, Chaz Lucius's options, yes, the NHL is an option for him, but I would say that the options the Jets are looking at for Chaz Lucius include the Manitoba Moose primarily. And if he's not ready, it would be the Portland Winterhawks. I mean, I believe in the WHL who got his rights. But I'm expecting Lucius to be a Manitoba Moose player this year. And I know Mark Hillier was quoted, I believe, in The Athletic and Scott Wheeler's story. My interpretation of those words were very straightforward. I think he was talking specifically about the Moose and the Western Hockey League. So I know, you know how things can get on the old Twitter machine once in a while. So I just would like to get folks to maybe temper not their enthusiasm, but temper their expectations, because Chaz Lucius is a very high-end player. He can score, but this is a guy who missed a lot of time in the last couple of years. He needs time to have his game round out and seasoned, and I expect that time to happen with the Manitoba Moose after a solid time at the Young Stars tournament in Penticton and his first NHL training camp. But to me, the NHL is not an option for Chaz Lucius right now, barring something unforeseen, because again, Huss, this guy is a skilled player. He needs to be, like, Mark's quotes were very direct. He needs to play a lot of minutes, and he needs to play in a lot of situations. Now, to me, Huss, I don't see a lot of room in the top 6 for the Jets, even if Chaz Lucius was 22 years old, let alone 19. So he's not going to be riding on the fourth line.
That being said, I mean, hey, you got 6 guys that are in. I mean, everyone knows who the top 6 is right now going forward. I mean, I guess if Rick Bowness wanted to, even if Rick Bowness wanted to have maybe a little bit more of, his firepower spread through the top 3 lines, who outside of the top 6 is pumping in there? I mean, Mason Appleton, I guess. Morgan Barron got a few shifts there at the end, but I mean, that's not there. And listen, I'm with you. I don't expect to see Chaz Lucius playing for the Winnipeg Jets, barring an incredible surplus of players on IR. But the fact that people are even mentioning his name right now, I think speaks to the fact that, the Jets are somewhat thin up front. And Todd Ferteni, Todd goes, do we have enough time to coach up one of those D-men to play wing? I'm not sure whether we're going to go with the old Adam Party situation and just move him up front, but that really is where the Jets are at right now, which brings me back to Perfetti. You said about there's an opportunity to play in the top 6. I think he is being relied upon to play in the top 6 and to produce at a level. And for a guy that doesn't have a lot of experience and didn't explode offensively in his first season in the National Hockey League, there really is a lot on the shoulders of Cole Perfetti going into this season if the Winnipeg Jets are going to be productive. And that's also going to mean the defensive side of the game, which could be a challenge going up against number 1 and 2 lines with tough matchups if he's playing with the top players on the Jets.
Yeah, so that's the thing for me that, some people, not you, but some people may have forgotten. I think that the part of the game that Cole handled probably better, we expected him to be able to play with skilled players. He's a smart player. He has great vision. And the most underrated part about Cole's game is his shot. He reminds me of Mark Scheifele when he came into the league. He just needs to be a little bit more selfish when it comes to shooting. The biggest thing for me last year that I was impressed by was not how he played with the puck. It's how his play was without the puck. I thought he was very conscientious as a defensive player. And that's the thing about being a centerman, Huss, by nature. That's his natural position. So he thinks the game so well. I think he's on the right side of the puck more often than not. Of course, he's undersized, but he won a lot of board battles. He gets inside position. And to me, I'm not concerned whatsoever about Cole's ability to go up against other teams' top lines and top 2 defense pairings because of how smart he is. So for me, I wouldn't be as concerned about that, Huss. But as you mentioned, it's a lot of responsibility. And when I say there's an opportunity, the only thing that, is a question mark right now is Cole's health. And, by Mark Scheifele's comments with Sarah Orlesky in that interview, he's skated with Cole. He looks healthy and he looks like he's ready to go. Now, if Cole's healthy, he's in the top 6. He's not going to be asked to check with Adam Lowry and Mason Appleton. That's just not the way we expect things to happen. So yes, I do expect him to be a productive player, but I've been talking to some people on DM as well saying, Cole will just easily replace Paul Stastny's numbers. That's possible, but let's not forget, Paul Stastny scored 21 goals last year. That's not to say Cole can't score 21 goals, but I believe Mark Scheifele's first full season in the NHL, he had around 15 goals and 45 points. So, to suggest that Cole Perfetti is an automatic 60-point guy as a 20-year-old rookie, now it's possible, but again, I would say temper your expectations. And if he hits that number, I would say he's exceeded expectations. This is an incredibly smart player.
Said, don't you need second-line players to produce at that level? That's kind of why I say there is a projection on him. There's nobody else. As far as we know right now, he is there. He's going to be relied on. And if he plays 82 games with top 6 minutes throughout the season, if they don't get that sort of production, I think that's sort of the worst fear of Winnipeg Jet fans, that not only are you somewhat, you don't have the depth from, in the 3rd and 4th lines, but you also need it in your top 6 right now. And listen, I'm really optimistic about Perfetti. I love what we saw from him. I think the creativity, the vision that he's had. I guess I'm just pointing out that, as presently constructed right now, it's not necessarily an opportunity, but they're actually counting on this guy to go in very early in his career and produce like a top 6 forward in the NHL.
For sure, Huss, and they should be doing that. But I'm just saying in terms of the numbers, is Cole Perfetti going to be 15 points better than Mark Scheifele was? Mark is a much better skater at Cole than Cole is at 20 years old. So, and I don't know about you, but if Cole Perfetti's not on the first power play, how is he expected to get 60 points, Huss? I mean, that's just not a reasonable expectation unless the second unit is suddenly operating at a highly efficient rate. So, and again, I think if he had 45 or 50 points, that's already an exceptional year for him. I mean, again, I expect him to be a 60-point player later on in his career and sooner rather than later. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'm bullish on Cole Perfetti. I'm just here to remind people that a lot of people were bullish on Mark Scheifele as well as a 7th overall pick. And in his first season, he did not have 60 points. And that's not to say he had a bad season. He had a strong season. So, I mean, I hear you. I know where you're coming from. And hey, Jason Robertson had an incredible year for the Dallas Stars last year, but he wasn't a 20-year-old rookie when he put up those numbers last year. So, I mean, I expect Rick Bowness to be leaning on him. But again, Cole is going to be the complementary player on his line no matter who he plays with this year. But at the same time, he's going to be expected to produce. So I just think it's important to just kind of, not to use Blake Wheeler's words, pump the brakes a little bit when it comes to everyone thinking he's going to be a 60 to 65-point guy. Pierre-Luc Dubois was a 60-point guy last year. So again, this is a guy who's got a lot more experience at the NHL level under his belt. So I'm just saying it's hard to get 60 points no matter where you're playing in the top 6 and how much power play time you get.
Yeah. Mike, it was funny. Mike was on the show yesterday and we were talking about upcoming training camp. And let's just say this is the way things are. And we get to training camp and the current roster is the current roster. And he talked about the interest in the first day of skates as to who is playing on that top line. If you had to guess right now, who's the number one line? Who's the guy that Rick Bowness throws out first this year? And how might those 6 players be lined up?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, I think we could see, it's interesting. I mean, obviously last year Cole Perfetti played on his offside. I mean, I think Cole Perfetti would be a nice match for Mark Scheifele's game. Now, are they going to play together from the very beginning on day one? That I'm not sure about. What we know is, Nikolai Ehlers is a guy who likes to play his offside. So could you see a line of Scheifele, Ehlers, and Perfetti together? And then you have Connor, Dubois, and Wheeler. We know Wheeler and Dubois had some success together. That's how I sort of see things shaking out at the beginning. But I think Rick Bowness is a guy who's going to experiment. And Huss, I mean, when it comes to the first day of training camp, I mean, this is the first time in 9 years that Paul Maurice isn't running training camp. And we got to know how Paul Maurice ran camp. And we learned very early not to read too much into what the first few days of training camp looked like, because sometimes it was an experimentation time. We don't know what it's like with Rick Bowness. And, quite frankly, I'm going to have to be checking in on some of my pals who covered the Dallas Stars to look for some clues in the early part of the training camp activities. But I think that's how things would start for the Jets. Now, again, do they want to spread some things out? Maybe, we talked about Morgan Barron getting a shot earlier on. He had that great game where he had the 2 goals. But, I mean, I think that's the top 6 is pretty clear cut at this stage of the game. Now, that could change with the trade of one of the defensemen. But right now, that's how I would expect things to start. But I expect there to be a lot of movement. I think in game there could be a lot of movement. I'm not saying it's a industrial-sized blender full time, to borrow the words of Scott Billick, but I think there's going to be a lot of movement around and some creativity. And then again, too, Huss, we don't know. Where does Rick Bowness want to put a guy like Chaz Lucius? I'm not saying to put him there for the season, but in order to try to exert the best out of Chaz Lucius, maybe he wants to play him a little bit with a Mark Scheifele or a Pierre-Luc Dubois to put him in a comfortable situation before he goes down to the Manitoba Moose. So I think I'm with you. I mean, first day of training camp is going to be super interesting. But Huss, the other part that's super interesting, not just with the forwards, what are those pairings going to look like? Who's playing with Ville Heinola? Who's playing with Nate Schmidt? Who's playing with Josh Morrissey?
Who's on the 5th pairing?
Who is on the 5th pairing? Well, right now I would say the 5th pairing is going to include Ashton Sautner and player to be named later. But you're right. I mean, there are a lot of people to be worked through. And what's Rick Bowness's policy on veterans playing the 6 preseason games? Is it 3? Is it 4? Is it 2? I mean, there is competition on this roster, but the competition is mostly in the bottom 6, Huss. So how do you, are you going with a veteran laden lineup one night? Or are you going to go 2 and 2 lines and 2? I mean, it's super interesting. And what's going to determine who those D-men are going to be and who's going to be used together and who might be the odd man out. I mean, these are things that we don't have answers to, but we're certainly going to be watching training camp a little bit more closely than we have. Not that we don't watch closely, but you know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of things that will be under the magnifying glass over the, 2.5 weeks before the season gets rolling in the middle of October with the visit from the New York Rangers and their new captain, Jacob Trouba.
Yeah, just back to the lines for a minute. I know there's a lot of people that are pretty excited about the potential of Scheifele with Ehlers and Perfetti. How concerned would you be about that line taking care of business in their own end? Because, those matchups are not going to be easy if you're playing significant minutes in the top six.
No, totally fair, Hassan. But what's the easy way to split those lines up, right? Everyone, for the years, people said get Wheeler, Scheifele, and Connor apart. Well, now they're apart. So they're still going to be in the top six, those three players. So there are going to be two of those players on one of the two lines. And like I said, to me, if you have Perfetti with Scheifele, you have two centermen. So you have a couple guys that could interchange with the responsibilities down low if you had to. And the best thing about, Nikolai Ehlers is a conscientious player. You wouldn't call him a defensive specialist, but let's be honest. If the puck is on Nikolai Ehlers' stick, the other team's going to be doing the majority of the defending because of his ability to break out and be a one-man zone entry. So,
yeah, I just mean again, when they don't have the puck. I love the offensive possibility. I am a little bit nervous on what happens when they don't have it and they have to take a top two line on another team in their own end.
Sure, Huss. Are you throwing that line out there to preserve a 1-goal lead late in the game? No, absolutely not. But if you are in a tie game looking for the go-ahead goal, you have no problem putting them on the ice. And again, let's see how it goes. We know the most important thing for the Jets this year, no matter how the lines are constructed or who's playing on defense or who's traded or who's here, is the commitment to defensive structure. If the Jets don't have defensive structure and they're not committed to playing better defensively, well, they're not a playoff team. Let's be honest. That is the number one goal going into training camp. It doesn't matter who's playing with whom. That is the number one priority. And I expect the Jets are going to spend a lot of their time on that part of the game because they know how to score. They have plenty of offensively gifted players. If they don't check better, if they don't protect the home plate area, you're asking an awful lot of your goaltender. And again, Connor Hellebuyck is more than happy to have a lot on his shoulders, but that is the area where the Jets need to improve the most. And that's where I expect the majority of training camp is going to be spent on improving the defensive game. And again, how aggressive are they going to be? That's the other big thing for me. When the Jets were at their very best in that 2018 run, they still did give up a lot of odd man rushes. They were very aggressive at both blue lines, but you can only do that if you have the F3 as your high forward and you're filling in terms of the defenseman who is pinched in that situation.
As far as that, I love the way they played that. I'm not sure they've got the personnel to do that right now. And a lot of this, to me, maybe the most interesting person in all of camp, we'll talk about Perfetti and what he can do, but it's Blake Wheeler. And let's assume that he's still the captain. And I guess we'll kind of see if Rick Bowness has any changes to that or how he handles that entire situation. But not only what we hear from Blake, which will be very interesting considering everything that happened and didn't happen that many people expected over the course of the summer, but his role on the club. And, we've sort of said that right now, the talk for a long time was, maybe Blake Wheeler would be better served in a role more in the middle six, potentially even at some points in the third line, still contributing on the power play. They don't have that luxury right now. Blake Wheeler is going to be a guy that will be relied on from day number one, I'd imagine, by Rick Bowness. What are realistic expectations for Blake Wheeler this year? And just what do you make of his situation coming in, considering everything that we've been talking about and what's been talked about, not just here in Winnipeg, but around the league, not to mention last 2 years' disappointing season?
Yeah, it's super interesting, Huss. Obviously there's going to be a lot of eyeballs on Blake Wheeler and a lot of ears perked up. But again, Blake's not going to bare his soul in his first interview. If people are expecting that to happen, they're going to be sorely disappointed. Occasionally, Blake speaks in code. He can be very honest and forthright, but Blake's a personal guy. He's an emotional guy, but I don't expect him to come out here and say, "Oh, my feelings are hurt because there was talk about a trade." I just don't see that happening. That's not Blake Wheeler's style. I think Blake Wheeler is going to show up and do what he always does. He's going to work his tail off And no matter what situation he's put in, he's going to, say the same thing he says every year. I'm here to win a Stanley Cup. And until he's not here, that will be his goal. So in terms of expectations, I mean, this guy is a perennial point producer. He was almost a point a game player last year. Yes, I understand he's a year older, but Blake keeps himself in tip-top shape. He's an incredibly smart player. He is very smart at distributing the puck on the power play. And I expect him to still be a 50 to 60 point guy. He could be 60 plus if he's rolling and he's healthy. I mean, the last 2 years he's been banged up a little bit, missed some time. But I mean, I don't expect a big drop off from Blake Wheeler. And for those people that are expecting that, I don't think you've been paying attention for the last 11 years. I mean, until Blake shows you he can't be a productive player, I would expect him to be a productive player. I mean, he's got a very long look at his resume. I mean, this guy produces. I mean, that's what he does. And his effort level is exceptionally high. So, I mean, could there have been a time this year where Blake was disappointed or was getting ready to move on to greener pastures or to a different scenario? Of course it's possible. We've heard it was out there. But I mean, if you think that Blake's going to be pouting and not putting in, I'm not saying you again, Huss. I mean, if there are people who don't think Blake is going to give maximum effort, those people haven't been paying very close attention to the last 11 seasons. Now, in terms of how he handles a change in role, like Tyler Seguin and Jamie Benn were asked to do, I mean, we don't know that. But again, I think that Blake Wheeler has made it very clear he wants to win. And if Rick Bowness sits him down in a meeting and says, I need to give Nikolai Ehlers 2 of your minutes to help you be ready in April and May and June, I think Blake Wheeler is okay with that. As long as the player playing ahead of him is productive and his team is winning, I don't see any issues whatsoever. I mean, is it a difficult thing for any player to do? Of course it is. I mean, Kevin Bieksa has spoken openly about, I mean, when you get to that age and your role changes, it's tough. You're used to being relied upon in all situations. I mean, I'm not saying it's going to be easy for Blake Wheeler, but this guy's shown an ability to adapt, and I don't expect that to change this year.
Do you think that the leadership group remains the same? Or like, how do you think Rick Bowness handles that coming in? Knowing, and some stuff might have been overblown, but I mean, it was pretty clear. I mean, all you needed to do was listen to what the players were saying at the end of the last season, that this wasn't the most united group, shall we say, despite what everyone says. How does he handle that? And to me, if there is any changes, how do the players involved handle that, what that does to the team? Because I think there certainly is some players we've talked about for a long time that are ready for more significant roles. But to do that, you're maybe moving someone else out of that or changing their role. And I'm very interested in the team dynamic, which let's just say people had a lot of questions about last season in the year where they missed the playoffs.
Yeah, sure, Huss. I mean, it's a great question. I mean, again, we don't know, does Rick Bowness believe in the team vote for captains and alternate captains? Does he believe in just naming one? Does he believe in adding a third alternate? I mean, what we know for sure is this, Huss. Andrew Kopp and Paul Stastny were a big part of the leadership group. They're not there. So whether you're giving someone a letter, those guys didn't wear letters primarily, right? So, I mean, are you giving Adam Lowry a third alternate situation? I mean, you could. He's definitely involved in the leadership group. But, I mean, I don't think that Josh Morrissey's not going to be losing an A. I think his leadership has been quite apparent. Based on how the conversations have gone with Mark Scheifele and Rick Bowness, from hearing from them, they're directly themselves, never speaking at the same time. Rick Bowness doesn't seem like a guy who would be stealing a letter as I'm taking this away, so you better show me something. I mean, that I don't see that being one of his first moves as the head coach. I mean, I don't see it. Could it happen? Sure. But I don't see it happening. I mean, if you need to have someone investing in you and what you believe in, I'm not sure saying I'm taking this away from you is the best way to get the best result from that player. But again, Rick Bowness has a bit of old school in him. I mean, is it a possibility? Sure. I mean, anything's a possibility, but I'm not expecting that to happen. We've said it all along. I mean, when it comes to Andrew Kopp, he didn't have a letter, but he was still a leader. So do I think you need to have some grandiose gesture by saying this guy isn't an alternate anymore and this guy is? I mean, I don't see that being a factor. I mean, the only alternate that I think have changed during the tenure for the Jets and players who have still been on the roster were Byfuglien and Toby Enstrom. Neither one of them who spoke more than, in Buff's case, maybe once a month, and in Toby's case, like once or twice a year. So I don't, to me, that's just kind of window dressing. I mean, the only thing that matters is how this group is, on and off the ice. I mean, I don't think by giving two other guys an A on their jersey is going to change the situation. I mean, this group needs to be show that they have a united front. They need to show that they're invested in their head coach, and they need to show that they're a team that can win. I mean, if they don't do that, then changes are going to be coming, whether or not who wears the letters or who isn't. For me, anyway.
Yeah, the way you put it there, I mean, there's a lot to sort of digest. But I mean, often we always say, well, if this change is made, how does that guy react? We always think about the individuals. But I think with the new head coach for the first time in 9 years, the most important decisions that might, to use an old Paul Mauriceism, ruffle some feathers is what's truly best for the team in the short term and looking ahead into the long term. And it sort of ties into my next question to you, Ken, is your perspective on just how impactful and important the first 20 to 25 games of this season, because we can't go into this team, especially with the lack of anything that's happened player move wise, knowing the time of the contracts that are remaining for some pretty key important players. What do you think will be determined in the first third of the NHL season for the Winnipeg Jets? Because I think there's a number of different scenarios that could come, and maybe some things happening sooner as opposed to later, depending on the performance of the team.
Yeah, and a quick one too, Huss, just to tie a bow on the leadership front. I mean, I mentioned Adam Lowry. I mean, to me, I've been very forthcoming on this subject. I think Brendan Dillon is a guy that could wear a letter every single day of the year for the Winnipeg Jets. Now, again, we're not sure if he's going to be on the team or not, or if he's one of those defensemen who could be moved. If Brendan Dillon is here, he's going to be part of the leadership group. Same for Nate Schmidt. I mean, these guys are proven leaders on teams that have had success. So again, do I think they have to have a letter on their jersey to do that job? Absolutely not. And I'll say this, I think those guys are both comfortable in year one, but I would be shocked if both of those guys were not more vocal in year two when it comes to all leadership avenues. In terms of the start of the year, Huss, I mean, that's the thing. Going back to your question about training camp, I mean, the Jets aren't in a position where they can spend a lot of camp experimenting. They need to have a good start, but a good start doesn't guarantee anything. The Jets were 9-3-3 last year, and it didn't get them into the playoffs. They were 8 points out of a playoff spot. So a good start is important for them, but to me, it's way more about how the commitment to the structure is and how they're playing. I mean, again, you're borrowing Paul Mauriceism, so will I. The Jets need to have an idea of what their game is going to look like, and that will come in the first 10 to 20 games. And once you get to that point, then you want to augment other areas of that game when it comes to the creativity. But their baseline has to be as a much better defensive team. And I understand some people aren't going to agree with that or like it, because this team is made to giddy up and go and score, but they can't score at a reckless pace. I get it. Some people say, well, don't worry about defense, just play offense, let the offensive guys play. That doesn't work for the Winnipeg Jets. They need to be a better defensive team, and then when they are defending, but when they have the puck, go wild. But go wild while still being, the opposite of reckless. You can't be careless or reckless when you're playing that way. You can open up your offensive game, but you have to be conscious of where things are at, right side of the puck, all those things. Make life easier on Connor Hellebuyck. That has to be one of the number one goals for the Winnipeg Jets this year. And I think Connor Hellebuyck is in for an absolutely massive season. I will be shocked if he is not in the discussion for the Vezina Trophy again. And again, that's not a lead pipe lock, but I would be pretty comfortable taking that to the Coolbet Lines. That Hellebuyck is going to be.
Is that because of the opportunity provided by his team to make tons of point-blank saves throughout the game? And we can't ignore how he won it the first time. The fact that the Jets weren't helping him out very often, and he raised his level to state that the goaltending, maybe more so than anything, was the reason why the Jets were competitive. Because if you swapped him out with another goaltender, we're probably talking about a team that is nowhere close to the same results.
Yeah, no, for me, Huss, I see the goals against average dipping dramatically, and I see the save percentage rising. I mean, there'll be a variety of factors. Obviously, we know Hellebuyck got COVID late in his training last year. He was a new father, all of those things. He had a heavy workload. And yes, we expect that workload to be heavy again in the 60-plus range, but I don't expect it to be in the 67 or 66-plus range. I think he's at the 62 to 64 or 65 range in terms of his starts. I think he's going to be a little bit more energized and refreshed. And I think this guy has massive, I mean, again, he's always motivated. But we saw it at the end of last year, how frustrated Connor Hellebuyck was by things not going well. And I expect him to put on his Superman cape and play a great style of play in between the pipes. But I also expect the Jets to be better in front of him. And again, I'm not talking about, 10 fewer shots on goal per game. But I think if Hellebuyck knows where the shots are coming from, he's going to make a lot more saves. And again, that's not to say he didn't make enough saves last year. He just wasn't superhuman last year. And I expect him to go back to that elite Connor Hellebuyck that we've seen so often in his tenure so far as a goaltender with the Winnipeg Jets.
Well, Kenny, I'll tell you what, the questions remain the same that we've been talking about quite a bit this season, but we're going to find out whether anything happens before camp over the course of the next couple weeks. And I mean, we're 5-6 weeks away from dropping the puck on another NHL season. And maybe because of how quiet things have been over the last little while, certainly will make for a very intriguing few weeks under Rick Bowness at training camp through the preseason. And then we'll see what this team looks like come game number 1 of 82 with, a lot on the line and a lot of intrigue as to where this team goes and what that means for the rest of the season. And of course, the makeup of the roster looking ahead into the future.
Yeah, no doubt about that. I'll say it's going to be a fascinating time for sure. And yeah, I mean, we're all scrolling on our phones, trying to figure out what the next move to come and when the next shoe will drop. But it's an exciting time, maybe a little bit of a calm before the storm here. And again, it's going to be an interesting time. That's what we know about this team. It's there are some risks associated with running it back, and now it's up to the players. I mean, yeah, this is a clear vote of confidence in the core group. Well, the core group has to show why that confidence and that vote of confidence was given by General Manager Kevin Cheveldayoff. And hey, they know what's at stake as well. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's not just the media and fans talking about this right now. The players want things to be different than they were last year as well. And I expect to see a highly motivated group show up for that first day of training camp with their goal of being a much better team next year.
Hey, Ken, I'm not sure what you're doing on Thursday, but it's the first ever WST Sports Trivia Night down at Little Brown Jug. You should maybe come by. I would love to see how you do with the questions that I've been curating over the last few days.
Well, Hassa, I do have to apologize in advance. We'll be playing Falcon Lake on Thursday afternoon for the first time this season. So I will be watching from afar, and I know that there are people much smarter than me that will be attacking those finely curated questions. And I must also say, after DB's appearance here, I'm a little bit jealous that I will not be hopping in the vehicle making my way to the Queen City for another Labor Day Classic. Always loved heading to the game when I was going to the University of Regina back in the, I'm going to date myself here, in the late 90s to 2000 when I was going to school there. That was always
Why aren't you going? I mean, there's certainly no jet stuff that's keeping you away from taking a weekend off and heading out there.
That's very true. I'll be up at Winnipeg Beach this weekend, though. So as you know, the summer of Ken has been a very productive and eventful summer, and I think we'll be up celebrating, watching the game with our good pal Joey Ello on Sunday afternoon as well. So,
by the way, people are in the chat. Sean Reynolds is on the side of milk cartons right now in Winnipeg. Do we have any update on Rennie's whereabouts? How's your partner doing?
Yes.
What's going on with you guys?
Yeah, we spoke on the phone yesterday for quite a while. We've got some business meetings happening. We've got a couple of golf games planned on the horizon, and definitely the shows will be shaking off the cobwebs very soon as the calendar is turning to September here. We appreciate everyone's patience. Had a little bit of recharging to do after an excellent season, but the Kenny and Rennie show will definitely be up and running here over the next couple of weeks, Hustles. And we look forward to it.
Winnipeg fans, we're just being fed patience. Be patient about the hockey team. Be patient about Ken and Sean ever deciding to do another show. Consistency is key on the ice and on the internet, Ken. So we'll look forward to you guys firing it up very soon. And of course, we'll get Sean on here soon for a summer update and his thoughts on what's happening with the Winnipeg Jets heading into training camp. Hit him straight today, and may your putts fall. And as I said, Karlos has set the bar pretty high. You know what you have to do, Ken. 2 holes and 1 is great. Ace 1 early, and then 2 great shots on a par 5. I'll be waiting to hear your response.
Yes, indeed. I did almost have the eagle portion, but the albatross has been very difficult to come by over my career so far. But as I always say to people who've never had a hole-in-one, keep firing in flags. You're due to get one sooner rather than later. Huss, pleasure to always be with you. Have a tremendous week, a great long weekend, and we'll look forward to our weekly chat next week, my man.
I've always said when people are talking life with me, I said I only have 2 goals. I have 2 things I want to have happen before I pass away. A hole-in-one and see the Jets win the cup. And I don't think I'm very close to seeing either of those right now.
Us, you need to get some more rounds, my man. Get some more rounds in. Breezy is calling her name as soon as the mid-am is over.
No doubt. Well, speaking of Breezy, we're going to head out there right away. But Weber, have a great round today. Thanks for doing this, and we'll catch up next week. Have a great long weekend.
Yep. Yeah, you too, my man. Take care. Thank you. Cheers.
There it is. Weeb's World himself crushed at least 2 leaders during that conversation. As always, shout out to Culligan and the Water folks. We will have information on the sports trivia night at Little Brown Jug in just a second. But I do want to thank our friends at Knott Auto Corp. Some great additions to the Knott staff as well. My old pal Andre Clark, former CFLer and Bison player, now working with the gang over there. Listen, if you are thinking about looking at a new vehicle, before you do anything, pop on down to Knott Auto Corp at Waverly and McGilvery and talk to the experts there. Just some amazing vehicles always on the lot, including a number of Tesla vehicles if you're thinking about going electric. But the bottom line is, if you have a make and model that you've got your heart set on, the Knott experts will source it, get it here for you at the best possible price. Why not get into the car of your dreams with the help of the Knott team? Knott Auto Corp, Waverly and McGilvery, and check them out online at knott.ca. All right, as I mentioned, Thursday night, we're less than 48 hours away from our first ever Winnipeg Sports Talk Trivia Night at Little Brown Jug. I'll be hosting. We've been putting together the program. We've got some Jets questions, some Bomber questions, some Winnipeg questions, as well as a ton of general sports stuff. Bottom line, it's just going to be a great way to get together, talk a little sports, have some laughs, and have some very delicious Little Brown Jug beers. Let's see. Let's paste right now. If you're with us on YouTube, the link is right there if you don't have your tickets so far. And again, just a nominal fee, essentially buying your first beer and counting yourself in, as space is limited. So you don't have much time. Count yourself in. We'll see you Thursday night, 7 p.m. We'll get going at Little Brown Jug down on William Avenue. And of course, you can get the great taste of Little Brown Jug at your local beer store, online at littlebrownjug.ca, or with us on Thursday night or any day down at Little Brown Jug in the Exchange. We got to give a shout out to boy Nick. I hope Nick might be able to make it out. Of course, Nick of the Nick and Nicky DQ group that's been with us since day one here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. I'm personally a sucker for the incredible Stack Burgers. I think the most underrated burger in the fast food game is at DQ. But the star of the show right now is the ice cream and the amazing summer blizzard flavors they have right now. Pop down to any of the 4 Nick and Nicky DQs with the fam today. DQ Niverville, DQ Northgate, DQ Polo Park, and DQ St. Anne's. Let them know the guys at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And if you do need a DQ ice cream cake for an upcoming event or party, maybe the easiest thing to do is hit them up on Instagram. Let them know what you want. They'll custom make it for you and have it ready to pick up quick and easy at your local Nick and Nicky DQ. All right. Now, we mentioned Breezy earlier. A lot going on today. First round today of the Canadian Mid-Am Women's and Seniors Championship. Big event for the course, big event for the city to be hosting a Golf Canada National Championship. And the tournament director from Golf Canada, Danial Suppa, joins us now on Winnipeg Sports Talk. All right, today's the big day. Beautiful Breezy Bend hosting the 2022 Canadian Women's Mid-Am and Senior Golf Championship. And it's an absolute pleasure to welcome in the tournament director, Golf Canada's Danial Suppa, to the program. Daniel, welcome to the Peg. How are you?
Good, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
Exciting times out at Breezy Bend. Of course, being around there for the last few weeks and seeing the incredible job they've done with the golf course. I mean, everyone's been really excited for this event. And Now it's game on. How are things from this morning heading into this afternoon? Looking after a lot of rain yesterday, probably impacted the practice rounds.
Yeah. Yesterday was a bit of a mixed bag with the rain and the weather. It was a bit chilly too, but we were able to get all the practice rounds off later in the afternoon. We've had a great reception from the players, with the course in better shape today with the rain kind of subduing and just having better course conditions. We've had great reception from all of the volunteers and all of the club's staff and our staff as well. And we're really excited to be here hosting or with Breezy hosting this event.
Well, I'll say this: Corey Johnson, a great friend of ours. I mean, they know how it's done, and I have no doubt that it's going to be a great week, both for fans and players. Of course, fans can get out there. It's free admission right now, and Daniel, fill people in on what they'll be seeing. I mean, these are the top female amateur golfers in Canada over the age of 25, and the top seniors as well. Fill us in on what this event is all about and who'll be playing in it.
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, a lot of the players have qualified into this event with their various provincial championships. So they're the best from each province from around the country. As well, we have 2 interprovincial team competitions within the mid amateurs and the seniors. So those are some really competitive competitions within those ladies, and those will take place over the first 2 rounds. And as you mentioned, some of the greatest female golfers across the country are participating. We have a lot of local competitors playing, and especially some Breezy Bend members playing. So the community is really happy to see that and excited to see some of the defending champions playing, such as Shelley Stouffer, Marianne Hayward, Helen Chartrand. So names like that, some legends, as you might say, in the women's amateur game are teeing it up this week at Breezy Bend.
Well, this is what it's all about. And of course, we just had an incredibly successful Canadian Women's Open out in Ottawa on the weekend. But from a Golf Canada perspective, how important are these amateur and senior championships that might not get as much ink on the top of the sport, Sports Center or whatnot, but are really sort of the core or the basis of the grassroots of the game?
Yeah, exactly. As you mentioned, they're the foundation of golf, starting from those grassroots with the amateurs. They're the ones who are very passionate about the game, and when we can bring these events to communities like Headingley and Winnipeg and Breezy Bend, they're extremely passionate and excited to put their home course on display. So we're extremely fortunate to be working with a club like Breezy Bend and provide a great championship for these athletes and for these competitors, because they take it very seriously, even though it's not their day job per se, but they're still extremely passionate and extremely competitive within their group of ladies out there.
Daniel Suppa from Golf Canada. He's the tournament director for the 2022 Canadian Women's Mid-Am and Senior Golf Championships, which is taking place right now at Breezy Bend. Round 1 today, rounds 2 and 3 over the next couple days. Daniel, we've of course had great support from Corey, and I'm out at Breezy quite often. We've seen and I've heard a lot about this tournament coming up, but from your perspective, fill us in on the amount of people that are needed to make this happen, the volunteers that have coming from the club and from Winnipeg, and how much work has gone in before this event to pull it off today with a successful round 1.
Well, Andrew, it depends. How much time do you have for me to fill you in? I'll give you a brief overview. Well, it spans back years, to be honest. With COVID delaying the actual event, it spans back planning many years. With the various committees and volunteer chairs, and then it goes into setup. We're here a week before. We're planning where all the signs are going to go, where all the tees are going to be set, what the yardages are going to be, and then we work with the club and their volunteers. We have over 100 volunteers this week, which we're extremely grateful for. We have player shuttles running. We have live scoring and pace of play volunteers. And as a tournament director, it's all we can ask for. or it's even more than what we can ask for with all these great volunteers and the community coming together. Corey's got a great crew out here, and he runs a tight but very fun ship. Being here at Breezy Bend, it's really great to see him, interacting with all the members and all the staff, and he takes care of everyone. And we're really fortunate to be here at Breezy Bend and work alongside him, because he's loved on this property for sure.
A tight but fun ship. That is a perfect way to describe what's going on. Now, as far as the first tee shots have been hit, the ladies are out on the course today. What's the role of the tournament director over the course of the 3 days once all the work is done to get the event off successfully on the first day?
Yeah, so we have kind of taken a back seat once the actual tee shots are hit. For the most part, we're making sure everything runs smoothly with our competitors and our officials. So if there's any rulings or any questions on the golf course, we'll make sure to be there answering any questions and kind of making sure that play is running smoothly, and making sure everyone has a good time. Ultimately, we want our volunteers, we want our spectators, we want our players to be having a good time and have limited obstacles and then limited speed bumps throughout the day. And then throughout the day, as scores come in, I'll be updating those on our website, and so that spectators and people online and away from the course can see the leaderboards and how that is shaping up.
Now, I've got to ask you this. I've always wanted to ask someone that's sort of running a tournament this. How do you guys decide, how long the holes are going to be playing? How do you decide where the holes are cut on the 3 days? Is that sort of a collaboration with the people at the course, or is there one person that does that? And what goes into those decisions, I guess, based on conditions, weather, all that stuff? I mean, fill me in on that.
Yeah, so with every tournament, we kind of have a team that is assembled for course setup. Obviously, me being the tournament director, I'm part of that committee, and then along with a rules official, we will primarily be the ones who are doing the setup each morning and kind of surveying all of the greens for hole locations. So, our rules official this week is Don McDonald. He's a vet in the officiating and in rules games, so he's out there helping me pick some fair but tough hole locations for these great ladies. And then along with the superintendent Craig and his team, who have been great this week, we kind of bounce ideas off of them, because they're a bit more experienced than I am, and they have a bit more knowledge with their home course, being that they work on it every single day. So they're the ones who we can bounce some ideas off of, and they have the most insight when it comes to those things. But more specifically with the history of the women's mid-am and senior, every year it's run minus the 2 years from COVID. So we kind of have a historical database where we can kind of see how we play each hole with length and distance and those types of things.
Hey, Daniel, while we've got all these great women on the course at Breezy today competing for national championships, I just have to ask you about women's golf in Canada right now. I mean, we saw the reception for Brooke Henderson out in Ottawa. And I mean, listen, she's the hometown hero. She's the most decorated, accomplished professional golfer in Canadian history. What is the effect we've seen? Like, I mean, you work with all the amateur championships. I'm sure the juniors are big. I mean, just fill us in on where the female golf is, but also junior golf, and what the Brooke effect has done to maybe spark the love of the game, where we might see young fans of Brooke playing in this event 10, 15 years down the road.
Yeah, you said it greatly there. I actually saw a tweet online where Brooke had a massive following after 36 holes. She wasn't, in first or second or even in the top 5, but she had a massive following, and she moves the needle for all these junior golfers. And myself doing a lot of junior events this year, it's really great to see, and it's really impressive to see all these junior golfers, how good they are and how focused and how determined they are. And I think with golfers, especially in communities like this. We want them to have all the opportunities that are available to them, and especially with junior female golfers. I know specifically our volunteers in our volunteer chair, they raised a lot of money and they held a junior golfing clinic this week. So having those programs in place are great to see, and pushing junior golf, especially for Golf Canada, where it all starts for them, it's critical for these amateur events.
No doubt about it. I mean, Brooke's an absolute rock star. I mean, she really transcends golf. I mean, as far as Canadian sports heroes, and we're at a great spot on the men's side too. Corey Connors, a top 30 in the PGA Tour, qualified for the President's Cup team. And unfortunately, there's all this live PGA stuff. But with Cam Smith and Leishman going, maybe we'll see Taylor Pendrith, Adam Hadwin getting on that President's Cup team as well. I wouldn't mind that. But the focus this week right here in Winnipeg is at Breezy Bend. It's the Canadian Women's Mid-Am and Senior Golf Championship. It's going to be some incredible golf from some of the top women in Canada. Admission is free. Get on out there, support the ladies, and it should be a great, great tournament. I know the staff and team at Breezy Bend has been working very hard to provide a great venue for a very important national championship. Daniel, enjoy the week here in Winnipeg, and all the best to you and all the women competing for a Golf Canada national title this week.
Thanks, Andrew. Thanks for having me on.
All right, great stuff from Breezy Bend. And again, free admission all week long. Round 1 today, round 2 tomorrow, and then the national titles will be given out on Thursday. So certainly if you'd like to see some high-level golf, especially if you maybe have some young females that would like to see some great players, get on out there this weekend and take in the Canadian Mid-Am and Senior Championships hosted at Breezy Bend. All right, we still got to get to some horse picks. Lots going on in the Coolbet Lines. We can tell you right now, Canada and the USA into the third period, tied at 2. Hey, we're already counting down to the Banjo Bowl, never mind the Labor Day Classic. Banjo Bowl already sold out. When it comes to Bomber games, get there early and take part in the great atmosphere at the Princess Auto Tailgate Party. $5 beers, $3 pop and hot dogs. Opens a couple hours before the game. DJ Finesse spinning, and great prizes as well from the Princess Auto team. Really is the place to be before the game. Of course, Princess Auto, proud sponsor of the Bombers and Winnipeg Sports Talk. And we're going to be doing a special show with some very special guests on Thursday from Princess Auto HQ. Don't miss that. Of course, you can visit them at one of 2 Winnipeg locations, Panet Road, Portage Avenue West, or shop online 24/7, 365 at princessauto.com. I got a big draft tonight. And by the way, another episode for you fantasy footballers out there. 6 o'clock our time, Dustin Nielsen and I will be back with another episode of the Lock Shop Fantasy Football Extravaganza. Check that out. If you haven't done your drafts yet, we'll be kicking around the wide receiver position today, getting into some tight ends. And then later on, I'm going to be kicking back, doing a draft with a bunch of friends online, and I've already got a few CC and Gingers in the fridge ready to celebrate some big picks. Of course, the CC and Ginger ready-to-drink pre-mixed cocktail of Canadian Club and Ginger Ale is available now in 6-packs at your local beer store. And if you haven't tried it, maybe the Banjo Bowl would be a great chance to get your first one in there. And, of course, the Jim Beam social passes come with a free CC and Ginger as well. Big thanks to Canadian Club for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. And, of course, the Winnipeg Blue Bombers is the official spirit of the blue and gold. Pick up CC at your local liquor store, and you can try both CC and Ginger and the great taste of Canadian Club at all Winnipeg Blue Bomber games. All right, we will get to Assiniboia Downs in a minute because it's much nicer than it was yesterday. Great day to get out to the track, but let's get to these Coolbet Lines. And as I mentioned, I was Barry Horowitzing myself yesterday on the program for going 4-0 against the spread last week, 7-1 in the last 2 weeks, seeing the board well. All of our CFL picks are on today's edition of the Lock Shop that dropped earlier today before Winnipeg Sports Talk. Lines right now, though, for the games for Labor Day weekend are as follows. Montreal, 5.5-point favorites against the Ottawa Redblacks. The Bombers, 3.5-point favorites on the road at Mosaic against the Saskatchewan Roughriders. The Hamilton Tiger Cats are 1-point favorites in the battle of the annual Labor Day game between the Argos and Ticats after the Argos beat them last week. And the Battle of Alberta, Elks and Stamps. Listen, I feel a lot better taking the points with the Elks on the road than I do at home. Edmonton 12.5-point underdogs against the Calgary Stampeders in Monday's finale. And as we mentioned yesterday, the injury to Nathan Rourke has further plummeted the Bombers' Grey Cup odds. Bombers plus 129 to make it a three-peat. BC next up at 4-1. There's lots going on, if you can believe it or not. There's curling odds right now at Coolbet. First event of the year, the Curling Stadium Martinsville Major goes on. So I kind of like the Europeans there in that event just because they've got the ice. And Canadians really don't have much option to. And we had the Mike McEwen team on earlier this week, or I guess that was on the Coolbet special I did with them. And it is a real big challenge. And I think the European team's in a bit of an advantage going into that event. Of course, we've got the U.S. Open happening tomorrow. Bianca Andreescu back at it. She's minus 111. And Rebecca Marino after her first round win, as well as Leilani Fernandez. Great start for the women. Today, Chapo goes at. You can check out all the odds in the U.S. Open there as well. And of course, Major League Baseball, big win by the Jays, comeback win, extra innings last night. They'll look to make it 2 in a row against the Chicago Cubs this evening. And I can tell you the Jays minus 192 favorites on that game tonight. The Cubbies plus 169 on the money line. All right. Oh, by the way, if you haven't played a Coolbet before, great time to do it with NFL right around the corner. You can use the promo code WST on your first deposit and get a 100% bonus up to $200 at coolbet.com. I finally got off the schneid yesterday. I made my picks very quickly. I picked a few of the Whit horses, which I normally do. I dropped a Triactor with some favorites, and it actually came through. A nice win, extending my lead over Michael Remus that had been getting precariously small. I was up, I think, $64 last night. Let's see if we can keep it going. Full live racing slate tonight. You can go to hpibet.com to join with myself and Remo. Tonight in race number 1, we're going with horse number 4, Thrills Legacy to win. Race number 3, I like this name, Yodeler's Way. Horse number 6, I'm going to bet Yodeler's Way to win. And then considering yesterday worked out the way it did, we're going to go with a couple Triactor boxes where you pick 3 horses. They can finish in any order. It's a $6 bet, essentially $1 6 ways. Capture the Glory, Dazzlin' Mischief, and Remus's favorite, Drizzy. That is for race number 4. And then number 5, Kim's Texas Bling, Dixie Mo, regulars in our picks, along with Blame It on the Brew. 145. That's for the 5th race. And race number 7, Bro Code and Ben Roy. Throw those in on a Quinella. Again, live racing parade to post begins tonight. Post time is 7:30 p.m. And if you do want to get a reservation in before the end of the season for that amazing prime rib buffet in the dining room on live racing nights, give them a call at 885-3330. Been a great show, folks. Don't forget, I know I mentioned this earlier, but if you pop by late, there is still time to count yourself in for our sports trivia night at Little Brown Jug on Thursday. I'll be hosting it. Still working on a few more questions, more of the general stuff, but it's going to be really, really fun. I'm sure we'll have some prizes there. The bottom line is the beers will be delicious. The beers will be cold, and we'll kick it around with a real fun trivia night. So we'd love to see you. Put the description in the YouTube channel as well. We'll put out a post or send me a DM or a tweet if you have any questions about it. But hope to see you there, Little Brown Jug, on Thursday night. Coming up tomorrow, very special guest with Remo away for a couple more days. None other than the sports rabbi, Matt Leibel, is going to jump on with me to begin the program. Really looking forward to having Matt back on the show. We'll have much more getting ready for the Labor Day Classic. And if there is any Jets news, it hasn't been a while since we've had any, we'll certainly be all over it here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. What a great show today. Thanks to Ken and Darrin for joining us. Of course, Karlos Jeong, the Ace Albatross combo, and Danial Suppa over from Golf Canada. as the Mid-Am and Senior Women's National Championships continue out of Breezy Bend. We will continue talking Bombers, Riders, CFL. We'll get into some NFL talk as well tomorrow with the season just around the corner. We're 9 days away from kickoff. That cannot come soon enough. And a full slate of guests as usual for a big Wednesday show tomorrow on Winnipeg Sports Talk. Thanks to everyone for hanging out. Great comments in the chat as always. You guys make this show. And a huge thanks to Alex Allard making this show happen from behind the scenes with Remo on the road. Don't worry, you'll all meet Alex before we're finished up on Thursday. And here is Michael Remis. Today they did the safari. Yesterday's with the Dolphins. Remo in his Mr. Dubs specialty shirt out in beautiful Paris, checking out the Eiffel Tower and more. A taste of France for Michael Remis in his daily travels. He'll be back on Friday. Alex and I will be back tomorrow with the Rabbi Matt Leibel and more. We'll see you tomorrow at 1 o'clock. Folks, thanks for being with us. Tell a friend about Winnipeg Sports Talk. Subscribe to the YouTube channel if you haven't already. Just hit that red subscribe button. And, of course, subscribe on your favorite podcast network. And don't forget, Lock Shop tonight, Fantasy Football Extravaganza, 6 p.m. on my Twitter, @Hustlerama, and Dustin Nielsen, @NielsenTSN 1260. Folks, have a great night. We'll catch you tomorrow right here on WST.
Oh, my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.